As we close in on this huge rematch between Ben Whittaker and Liam Cameron, there are some huge questions that need to be answered, namely by Whittaker. Why did he perform so badly in the first fight? Tactically and technically, how can he improve? How can he change going into this rematch to try and get the win over Liam Cameron? In this video, I'm going to reveal all the secrets, tricks, and keys from that first fight that allowed Liam Cameron to dominate Ben Whittaker and force him to quit by flipping them both out of the ring. Before explaining how I think Liam Cameron can improve in the rematch, and more importantly, how Ben Whittaker can improve in the rematch, because he, out of the two of them, is the one that really needs to make some big changes. And I think he might be able to do them, and I'm going to explain to you exactly how he can do it. Stick with me to the end of this one, guys, as I get into my game film analysis from Ben Whittaker versus Liam Cameron, the rematch. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. It is upon us. I finally get to do a game film analysis film again. I've not done one for a while. The last one I did was about Beterbiev before Beterbiev Bivol 2, but it's been a while since I've sat down for a long form breakdown, looking at two fighters and trying to figure out how they're going to win. And as you all know, this is a staple of the channel, and it's the content that I enjoy doing the most. Because at the end of the day, what I really want to do is try and figure out who's going to win a fight. I don't love talking about news and politics and all that stuff. What I love is the sport of boxing, the technical aspect of it, the tactical aspect of it, and all the things that are in between that, the psychological makeup of a fighter, their preparation, all those things that tell us whether or not they're going to win a damn fight. That's what I really care about. And that is exactly what we're talking about here in this video. Guys, before I get into this game film analysis film today, please don't forget to bang a like on the video. It really goes a long way towards getting the video out there. If you enjoy it, if you think the content is insightful and helpful, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you get notifications when I post a new video, and get in the comments section below. I've got a lot of stuff for us to chat about today, a lot of interesting thoughts. I really enjoyed doing this breakdown, doing this tactical analysis, watching these two guys, watching that fight back and really slowing things down, understanding what Ben Whittaker was doing that let Liam Cameron basically dominate the fight. Whittaker essentially self-destructed in this one for me, and I talked about this in my last video, talking about this big mistake they may have made with the 10 versus 12 rounds and the stamina conditioning issue, the fact that he mentally appeared to break and flipped himself out of the ring. All Liam Cameron had to do was go in there, be himself, apply pressure, be patient, and as I said in that video, I think what we're seeing with Whittaker, what we saw with Whittaker in this fight, was a fighter really struggling to develop their pro style and transition over from the amateurs. So in this video, I'm going to draw a lot of attention to big mistakes that Whittaker made. What was it that he did wrong that allowed Liam Cameron into this fight? And what can he do to correct them? That's the big question, because as I said, he's a guy developing his style. So if I was his coach, what would I do? I'm going to tell you that, but also I'm going to tell you what I think Andy Lee will do, because I think Andy Lee might be the perfect coach for him. When I look at him, what he did wrong in this fight, what I would do with him, and then the kinds of stuff I've seen in Andy Lee's fights, I think this could be an absolutely fantastic matchup. So to start with here, I'm going to look at what did Cameron do to Whittaker and how did that happen? Why did Whittaker let that happen? What was Whittaker doing badly? We're going to go through all the faults of Whittaker and how Cameron exploited them in the first part of this video. So to begin with, I want to describe to you the scene of the fight, what the stances of the two men were, what the basic pattern of this fight was. What we saw a lot in this fight was Ben Whittaker basically sitting in the pocket here. He would stay in that position and he would use pivots and leans to avoid shots and to try and create punching opportunities. And he would very much wait for Liam Cameron to enter the space. So you can see here, their feet are close together here. And Liam Cameron was constantly on the front foot and he would use a high guard and a lunge backwards to defend. They were his main lines of defense. So either he's got this high guard up here in front of his face. He always had that nice and tight when he was in the pocket. He was very disciplined with that high guard. Didn't really eat too many clean shots to the head, at least. And the alternative for him was just launching backwards this way. Because Whittaker wasn't massively on the front foot, he would choose his moments where he would go more aggressive, get on the front foot a bit more. But generally speaking, Liam Cameron was able to move backwards in straight lines and get out of range when Whittaker did decide to engage. And he was extremely patient with this, Liam Cameron. He would wait for his chance to throw his shots. He wouldn't make mistakes. He was almost more the counterpuncher. I felt that Whittaker felt the pressure in this fight to lead off and be the aggressor. Cameron was applying pressure with the front footwork, and it was something we saw in the Dave Allen fight when he fought against Johnny Fisher, where he was constantly on the front foot, not throwing as many shots, probably not as much the aggressor with his shots, but just on the front foot, applying pressure, hands up. It's a veteran pro move. Let them make mistakes, let them gas, let them panic. When you're the talented star and you've been the one that's showboating and braggadocious and the one that's been making the fights, essentially, Whittaker hasn't changed from that mindset here, and that is a big part of why he struggled in this fight. But the first thing that I want to show you here is how Cameron was able to land the right hand so often. And there's two main ways that he was able to do this. So I'm going to show you the first one, which was, it was the right hand over the jab. And there's a reason this was able to work, and I'll break it down for you. So as you can see, Cameron's on the front foot here. He's walking Whittaker down, and he takes a step in here into range. As he steps into range, Whittaker is going to fire this jab hand off. But as you can see, Cameron, as he's got his foot into range, his hands are up. He's got a nice tight guard here in front of his face, ready to block any straight punches. He fires it off, boom, hits the gloves. So that's the first one. And look where his hand returns to, down here. So you know, if you're Liam Cameron, if you can time that jab as he takes it back to his body, there will likely be an opportunity. And this was a position he ended up in consistently, Ben Whittaker, with that low lead hand. So this time what happens is Liam Cameron steps in again, takes that little step. As he steps, he gets his head off the center line. So this is the center line. He gets his head off this way, which means as Whittaker goes to throw that jab, he's likely going to miss. And when he brings it back, we know where it's likely going to be. So watch, as he extends that jab, he misses Liam Cameron's head entirely. And because his jab hand is low, because we know he's lackadaisical about bringing it back, also because he was very committal with the jab in this fight, Ben Whittaker, it was not often that he used a probing jab to judge the distance, to feel out where his opponent was, to maintain the range. Every jab was fairly hard. You know he's not going to get it back in time. And he clubs around the side of the head there. It doesn't land super clean, but he was able to use that to set up other shots. As you see there, he lands a little left uppercut, goes with the left hook, and Whittaker's able to move out of range here, but and you see he follows up with a 1-2. But again, look at the discipline of Liam Cameron instantly. You know, this is not easy to do, to instantly get your guard up like that. It's very, very disciplined and aware. But that right hand, and I'm going to show you more examples of it, it was the breaking point in the defense of Whittaker. It was how he was able to set up other shots, other combinations, but also just on its own as a clubbing shot. It wasn't landing clean on the chin, but it was landing around the side of the head, and it definitely would have been causing damage. Here's another great example of it. You see here, the two men in each other's faces, moving into range. You can see there's a decent gap between them, but this is all about timing from Liam Cameron. It's very nice. Again, if he moves his head, he knows he's likely going to make Whittaker miss with that committal jab. So he goes with the jab. Watch. As he steps in, he's taking his head off to the side. He doesn't step in a straight line. He doesn't keep on that line. He gets it off. So he gets his head over. As he gets his head over, Whittaker does slightly land the jab, but it's not that effective. And he takes one to give one, essentially. And you can see the jab ends up going over the shoulder, and Cameron's able to swing this in around the jab hand, and boom, lands on the side of the head. And that's a good shot. Here's another good example. So again, Liam Cameron with the high guard, and I'm going to not say that so much more now moving forward. Now I've made my point, but it's really important to note, the fact that he's just super disciplined with it, and it's actually really impressive. It's not easy to do, to be that disciplined with the high guard throughout the fight. He's really well drilled going into this, and I definitely have an appreciation of someone just getting the basics right. But you see here, Whittaker throws the jab, and again, you watch, it's from that high guard position, his hands come away, but it's a very subtle movement of the head. Watch, as the hands drop down to throw the shot, he moves the head off the center line, which means that jab misses his head completely. And once again, it's going over his shoulder, and he's able to throw the shot over the top, and he catches him slightly. Because he's at quite a distance there, Whittaker, it doesn't land that clean. But again, it's the same principle. There is a thing that I think Whittaker can do with that I will show you in the section later in the video. What do I think Whittaker can do to change and improve? I've got so many things to say, but there is a particular thing I think he can do. And you might be surprised at the fighter I think he can take influence from. Here we go. Another one. And this is just a smart angle of shot from Cameron. He knows that Whittaker is going to use this hand as a primary defensive tool rather than using his feet, something he needs to do a lot better, and we will talk about that. But you see here, look, this is not a counter shot. This is just an understanding of what Whittaker will do, as I say. So you watch, he steps in as this foot lands, so he's in range. He throws that right hand around the shoulder, and he's predicted there that hand is going to come out. So as he throws it, he's thrown it in a way that loops it round, and he catches him again around the side of the head. And Whittaker's okay there, but again, it's not a comfortable shot. He's landed it, not super clean, but clean enough. Another good one here again. It's all about that line. He's on the line here. He gets his head over to here. Horrible arrow I've just drawn. Moves it over, makes the jab miss. That goes over his shoulder. Again, look at the angle of his arm. Goes straight around. Boom, hits him in the side of the head. And this was such an important shot for Liam Cameron in the fight. It really gave him an opportunity to target that jab of Ben Whittaker, make him more cautious to throw anything. Because if every time you throw your jab, there's a big right hand coming over the top of it, it does make you nervous. But I think that this really emphasized Whittaker's lack of understanding of when to throw the right kind of jab. I felt that he was so one-paced with the jab in this fight, and the lack of variation meant that Cameron was very, very happy throwing over the top of it. I also think that he needed to feint a lot more. Again, this is something I'll talk about later, but the lack of feints meant that Cameron just felt so confident with having an understanding of what that Whittaker jab was doing. It was so unbelievably readable for him. Last one I'm going to show you, because I just think this is a great example of Liam Cameron just doing really good work. He hops into range here, which is, people think he's got basic footwork. I actually think Liam Cameron has very solid fundamentals. And you'll see here, Whittaker's got a very narrow stance. So he's not exactly on balance. It's not a great position to be repositioning yourself or moving away, creating the space as he hops in. You can't really react. And as I say, because one of his primary reactions is to use the jab as a defensive tool, he gets in trouble. So look, as he steps his leg back there, watch, just a little shuffle step in, this foot, little pendulum step in, back foot, front foot, boom, lands. The second he lands, he's like, I'm going to chuck my right hand in again at that angle. And you'll see that same angle again. You look at the angle of that right hand. If the jab was more accurate, it could hit him in the face. But again, because Liam Cameron gets his head off to the side, as he throws, gets his head off that line, it means that it's going to miss. So there we go, straight over the top. You see that position there? That's so telling. His head's here, his jab's here, and then his shot's landing right there. It's a really, really good shot. The makeup of that shot is beautiful, and it worked so, so well for him in this fight. The second way that he was able to land the right hand was by predicting another way that Whittaker likes to defend shots. So essentially here what he's done is he's taken away the things that make Whittaker feel really comfortable in avoiding right hands. So the second one here is this dip he does to his right hand side. Let me show you. So here we are, and there's a couple of things here to really notice. So this defensive posture from Ben Whittaker here is actually really interesting, because I just feel like he doesn't do it quite right. He's in a sort of a position for a shoulder roll. He's got that low lead hand. He's got this hand here. So the idea is you can catch with this hand, you can catch with the shoulder, and it should allow you to stay in the pocket and fire counter shots. The problem here is that I don't think he turns his shoulder enough. That's part of it, but also he dips down, and you'll see it's just very readable. I think Cameron studied him well before this fight. I think he knew exactly what he was going to do, and he knew what shots to throw as the remedy for these different defensive movements. But watch this. So as Liam Cameron steps in here, he actually is nice. If you look, the way he leans here, you think he's going to go with this jab. You see a little movement there. Look, he just leans into that, but instead of going with the jab, and you know that movement he makes would be typically to defend a jab, this hand would catch it. So as he throws the jab out, that hand would kind of come to it and catch it. You see, he makes the little movement, and the jab's not there. So then as he dips down to avoid the right hand, his chin's not tucked enough. So if his chin was more like here and his shoulder was up a little bit there, then it could block that right hand. But it's not, and Cameron gets the trajectory perfect, and you can see he just fires it over the top, and he hits him as he dips down, and this worked for him time and time again. Whittaker's got some tidying up to do of the way that he makes that defensive movement. I'm not saying it can't work for him. I'm just saying he needs to work on it. Again, I'll talk about this later in the video, but I'm just showing you the things he did wrong right now. Another example of it here, and what's really interesting to me here is the feet. And all the best fighters that I enjoy watching are in control of the range. They're constantly readjusting their feet. And it's not often you'll let them see another fighter just waltz into their space. And if you watch here, so their front feet, you can't quite see, with the toes there of Ben Whittaker, Liam Cameron's front foot's there. So they're already both in range. But if you want to land that really big power shot, and if you want to counteract good head movement, you need to be in nice and close, because then, you know, you can still land on the head because you're in the pocket. Watch what Liam Cameron does here. He takes a step in. See that? Little what's the word I'm looking for? Pendulum step, sorry. Little pendulum step in. Boom, back foot, front foot, steps in. Now look, that's Whittaker's front foot, that's his front foot. He is right inside the pocket there. As he steps in, he throws a jab. And the problem with this is that Ben Whittaker he's good at avoiding a single phase. And that's okay if you then move. So watch, he dips his head down like this, and he's avoided the jab, great. But one of the great things that Liam Cameron did in this fight was he threw in combinations. And because Whittaker's good at the first phase, maybe the second phase, probably not the third phase, he'll dodge the first punch more than likely, but the second and third, he holds his feet, he stays in the pocket. And that's where you dodge that first punch, you've got to see him make adjustments with his feet. Something Usyk does extremely well. Constantly, if he blocks a shot, he'll adjust his feet. If he slips a shot, he'll adjust his feet. He might block and then pull his hands away and then slip, and then he'll punish you with a counter shot. And Whittaker right now, he's just being too lazy with those feet. I'm not saying it is a laziness, I'm just saying they're not moving enough. So watch, he slips that jab. Because he dips down again, his head's there, that right hand comes over the jab and it cracks him in the head. Boom, side of the head there. And you can see the whole time he's doing this, his feet don't really move. So the jab goes in, shot, shot. The only thing that happens is he just takes a slight adjustment with that foot from there to, with that foot from there to there. Just a tiny little shuffle. And so you know his body's not moving. He then turns into it, and then again, Cameron can hit him again in the pocket. And then Cameron is the one, when he's done exchanging, he just bounces out of range. Boom, back. And they reset. And this was a massive issue for Whittaker, holding his feet in the pocket. I will show you the really punishing moments where he did that. But that thing of Cameron, that's in round 2 in minute 1 of 1 minute to go in round 2. Cameron there will just be realizing just how easily he can enter that space and engage him in the pocket. And you'll start to see he starts to land some really, really good shots. Okay, so this is, again, I think this is the best example of it, and I'm going to break this down properly because I think it's really important to see. So you see there's a decent gap between them. You know, he's in a position there, Liam Cameron, where one little step will get him into range. And if you're Whittaker and you're trying to control the range, you need to be the one that decides when this guy is going to be in a space that can hit me because I'm controlling the range, I'm controlling the distance, I'm the ring general. Liam Cameron was the ring general in this fight. That's the reality of it. And everything that Whittaker did was reactive, but it wasn't an adequate reaction in my opinion. So you see here, this is scandalous. And again, Liam Cameron, Whittaker's hands are like down here. You know, they're not in a particularly defensively sound position. Whereas Liam Cameron, look, he's looking through the binoculars, as we like to call it. He's got them up. He can see what's in front of him. So watch this. He actually gets 2 bites of the cherry here with the step in. So first step, boom, 1 step. He puts his foot in. No reaction. And look how close he is now. No reaction at all. And if you are Ben Whittaker, the second that foot lands, you have to make a decision. Am I going to, you know, throw something? Am I going to jab down to his body, which is exposed? Am I going to feint and then, you know, move off at an angle and then maybe try and throw a bent arm shot? No, what happens? He doesn't do anything. And then Liam Cameron steps in again. So look, but this time he goes with the punch. So watch, as he steps in, his foot's in the pocket and he tries to land the jab. Because Whittaker hasn't controlled the range, because he hasn't moved his feet, he's got no choice left but to move his head. So watch, that punch comes in, he moves his head to the side. But again, what's the problem with that? Well, Liam Cameron has got his feet really close. He's missed the first phase. His hand's going over there, so he's going over the shoulder. But with these guys that are good at first phase defending, as I said before, if you throw 2, 3, you're going to hit him eventually. And what happens here? Boom. He comes down with that shot over the top. And then he lands, actually, he just misses it this time, or maybe it brushes the body, but he lands a nice hook to the body potentially. And those shots to the body were absolutely crucial, and they were possible because of how he was able to enter the pocket and land them as part of a series of combination punches. I'm going to take you to round 5 now because I think this is the best example of this, and it was where, you know, you say a fighter that's not moving so much is probably because they're gassed and fatigued. You can see even earlier on, he probably wasn't moving enough in those moments, but I'm going to show you the culmination of these smaller moments, why you can't just sit in the pocket. So once again, Whittaker failing to use his feet as a first line of defense, sitting in the pocket, looking to make Cameron miss and pay, but just not working. So here we go, watch. This is a good space between them. Neither guy is exactly in range right now. And the stance fairly similar, but watch this. Okay, so as he steps in here, Liam Cameron takes that first step. Whittaker then also plants his foot and he dips down. So from this position here, you know, that's not a bad position. Although what I will say is that he's leaning forward quite a lot. So that fundamentally means you're a little bit unbalanced. But sometimes fighters do that because they try and draw a shot. And you'll see here, leaning forward, Liam Cameron throws the left hook, which Whittaker does take a little bit on the side of the head there because he's not really got his wits fully about him. So that's, you know, pointless being in that leaning forward position. Comes up and then he comes back with a jab. But in the meantime, what's Cameron been doing? As he threw that left hook, you see every opportunity he gets to do it, he'll step further forward. So just little minute adjustments of the feet. Takes that little shuffle in. The back foot came forward. The front foot came forward. And what you'll notice about Whittaker the entire time is that his front foot has stayed in the same position. So watch this. As Cameron steps in, he throws the jab, which lands. Whittaker also throws the jab, but as you can see again, Cameron has got his head off that center line. So he enters the pocket in that very smart way, throwing something, getting his head off the center line. So he then is able to come back over the jab again with that backhand. Lead hand exchanges, shot over the top of the backhand. Whittaker dips down, and again, look, instead of eating the shot and having the wherewithal to get out of there, he just sinks into the pocket. His knee is completely bent. His leg is extended there. He's got no weight on that back foot, so it's really hard for him to get out of position here. And the worst part of it is that he's sort of slumped forward, you know, just so open for shots. And you can see here, Liam Cameron makes the most of this. Look, I mean, look at that position. Look how vulnerable that is. His hands are down here. Liam Cameron's lent on him a bit, which hasn't helped Ben Whittaker. But what does he do here? Boom. Lovely little left hook to the body. And this sitting in the pocket, this lack of alertness to get out once you've tried to throw something, Obviously, he got hit and a little bit hurt there, but you've got to have that first thought of controlling the range, controlling the distance, because he was forced to engage in the pocket so much with his own insistence to hold his feet. He started to get beaten up, and that area there is where Liam Cameron will thrive. He's the stronger man. He's the harder puncher. He's the one that wants to go to your body. And he's the one that's willing to eat a shot. And he's, honestly, it's insane to say this, but he implemented better head movement in this fight when he was attacking than Ben Whittaker did. Ben Whittaker's got better head movement defensively, but Liam Cameron was the one that did the right things when he was throwing shots. Again, and I have to say, I think these are the moments where gas tank played a big part. I think Whittaker's so spent here, he can't do much. And actually, someone said it on my most recent video. This is Josh Kelly 2.0. And what that basically means is, for those of you that don't understand, is that Josh Kelly was super talented, but the way that he boxes meant that everything's so explosive and so one-paced, which is a high pace, a lot of head movement, a lot of dipping of the legs, a lot of explosive shots. It doesn't translate very well into the pros because you've got to do it for so many rounds. And I think the way that Whittaker goes about his business right now is a very, very energy-burning style. And I don't think it's realistic that he could do this for 12 rounds. Well, certainly not with the punch power that he seems to lack. So anyway, you'll see here, as Cameron steps in, he dips down. Again, his guard's in a great position. Whittaker's is way looser. Cameron's is nice and tight there. Although the body is open again, so that is something for Whittaker to consider. But anyway, steps in and he jabs Whittaker's jab hand, so he's got that occupied now. Jabs it again, and then he just throws a little short right hand up the middle. And all this time, once again, throws a left hook, which is partially blocked. Little jab, dips down the right hand again. He dips round, left hook to the body, just misses. But again, throughout all of this, the biggest issue is that his weight is so much on his front foot. Look, see when he's dipped down there, all the weight is going through there. And you know, this body here, I think that in the rematch, Cameron can definitely use that uppercut. We'll talk about that later, but that's on there, that shot, if you can manipulate it to that. But again, so much of his weight is on his front foot in the pocket, Ben Whittaker. He's not looking to move in and out of range. He ends up pivoting round, which gets him away, but he's in such an exposed position here. I think that Liam Cameron will watch that back and think, God, there was opportunities to hit him with even cleaner shots when he was in the pocket. Another quick little one I'll show you, but I think the point's been made. Cameron steps in, so does Whittaker, so their feet meet here. Now, the issue with this is, again, once the feet are there, both in range, Whittaker knows he's got to avoid Cameron's shot. I mean, what I really want to see him doing is adjusting his feet, and I'll explain that later, but Cameron extends the jab hand, touches Whittaker's glove there. Whittaker dips down, and again, look, his feet are now loaded, so when you're in that position there, you know, he's not going anywhere here. And that is such a dodgy position. He's leaning right forward, and because he's not going anywhere, because his feet aren't moving, Liam Cameron has got his foot nice and close. He's looking for that body shot. Boom, there, left hook to the body. Lovely, lovely shot. And he's able to step in and follow him, and Whittaker takes a step back on that one, and he's all right. They end up clinching. But, you know, this insistence on holding his feet, on moving his head, it just didn't work. He got hit with so many shots in the pocket, and it was ridiculous, to be honest with you. Another thing I've talked about a few times, and I want to show you again here what I mean, is Whittaker, he sits on the line far too much. He doesn't move his head off to the side enough when he throws, and that is a big part of why Cameron was able to counter him and find that body. But if you look here, if we imagine this line straight down the middle here, Whittaker his head is constantly on that line. He doesn't move it off to the side. So what I'm talking about is when he throws a right hand or a left hand. Say he throws a jab, he wants to get his head out that way. Say he throws a right hand, he wants to get his head out that way. Excuse me. And he just doesn't do it enough. So you watch here, Cameron steps in, and because Whittaker is so square, and that's the other thing I should say, it's the squareness as well. He's not side on enough. And the fact he's not side on enough means that when he misses, the body is there, shots are there. So if you watch as Cameron steps in, it's hard to see from this angle, but he chucks the right hand in, kind of misses the uppercut, and he's still there. He's not moved his head off to the side, Whittaker. He's not fired back with something and moved his head. And then you watch, because he's throwing this left hook, and because he's in a position where his shoulders are already square, this hook is coming around like this. It means that his whole body's going to open up when he throws it, rather than being more side on with his chin behind his shoulder. When he throws that hook, it means that he'll turn his body out the way. Because he's square, he's opening up as he does it. So Cameron is also throwing his shot. You can see that's there, that's coming around. As he throws, boom, that lands to the body. That's a really nice body shot that Cameron lands there. Whittaker's sort of half lands, I think. It's hard to tell from the angle. Does a little celebration, but definitely got caught there. Once again here, straight on the line, and Cameron is the one who's sort of jockeying full position off the line. And because he's so square on the line, because his shoulders are so square in this position here, you'll see Cameron fires in that uppercut. Boom. He just slips it in there. That's a really nice shot. And actually, Whittaker does something quite nice there. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But he does actually end up throwing a shot around the guard. And as he does that, his head gets off to the side, which is actually good. But generally speaking, just too much on the line as he's approaching Liam Cameron, sitting on the line, not getting his head off to the side enough, not making it unpredictable enough with his head. This is just moments later. You see it again here, those square shoulders, the compact sort of position. And look, Liam Cameron's the one who dips his head down this way, creates a tiny bit of space for his right hand to land the shot there to the body. Doesn't go in hard, but kind of gets in a little bit, throws another little uppercut, and they tie up. Once again, here in this position, you know, there's a couple of things going on here. The lean forward, the square shoulders, the weight on the front foot. As he dips down there, Liam Cameron just whips in a lead uppercut, and it catches him on the chin a little bit. And again, a second one. He goes for his own body shot, which I think Cameron partially blocks, and they reset. But again, two on the line, not moving his head enough when he throws. It's too predictable. And stylistically, it's so interesting who he reminds me of. And I don't want to spoil it. I'll tell you when I get to the improvement section, but I think you're going to be really surprised when you hear who he reminds me of in certain moments anyway. Okay, the final thing I want to show you that I thought that Ben Whittaker did really poorly, or the mistakes that he made, or the things he shouldn't have done, were the fouls. And I don't know if people really noticed this during the fight, how badly Whittaker was fouling Cameron. So many low blows, and this really adds to the narrative for me that I'm so convinced he flipped himself out of the ring at this point, and the majority of them came in that final round before he flipped himself out. I think he was looking to try and buy himself time with those low blows. He was feeling the pace, he was tired, and he started to do a little bit of mischief. And I'm going to show you some of those low blows now, because sometimes at full speed you don't see them that clearly, but there's a consecutive period of fouling in round 5 when he eventually gets a warning. So I'm going to show you. I'll show you the ones that are definite anyway. So this is the first one here. So you see he steps in and he fires a body jab. The first one is probably okay. It's on the belt line, maybe just slightly above it. It's really hard to tell because the referee usually says where's okay and where's not. Sometimes that includes the belt line, depending on whether or not it's on or above your belly button. Anyway, he fires that first jab, kind of okay. Second one, kind of okay. The last one, the right hand, that is low for sure. That is landing on the shorts below the belt line. Definitely a low blow. I think Cameron bounces back and sort of like, that you see he looks at the referee there. He sort of exclaimed, what the hell is going on? The next one is here. Cameron enters the pocket. Whittaker dips down. He throws an uppercut, which I think that lands ridiculously low. That's where his hand is there. And that is towards the bottom of Cameron's short. So that one lands low. He goes with the second one that lands. I mean, it's not really a full shot. It's kind of weird. He's like swinging around and it kind of nestles there. So we won't call that a punch. But then this one, I mean, that's ridiculously low. That is on his glute. And again, I think it's to do with fatigue, but 100% a low shot. Here's another one. He pendulum steps in, jabs upstairs. As he does that, he drops down, and you can see he throws another jab. He occupies the guard here of Liam Cameron, and he drops the right hand down, and bosh, look where that lands. Look at where that's landed. That is absolutely ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The belt line is there. So, he's really messed that one up. A shocking low blow. And the next one is when he gets the warning, I believe. Oh, no, sorry. That one was when he got the warning. So there you go. There's another one right here again. He dips down again. Cameron's moving towards the ropes, and Whittaker fires this right hand. Look how ridiculously low that is. You can see that's the top of the belt line there. That's where his hand is going as he turns through. That lands low. Comes upstairs with the rest of the shots, but it's sort of desperate at that point. But yeah, ridiculously low shot to start that sequence. And this is right before he flips himself out the ring. And it's really interesting that no one was really talking about this, but genuinely fouling quite clearly just before he does it. It just adds more weight to the fact that he was willing to get himself out of there. He couldn't slow Cameron down. He was taking chances. He was, he would have got DQ'd for fouling probably if he continued this way. But look, again, dips down. That shot goes in. Look where that lands. Again, that is on the glute of Liam Cameron. So one there. He dips down the other side, and then he throws another one there, which is again is low. You can see it's like there, which is just, again, it's low. It's ridiculous. The referee's watching right there. You can see him. So I'm not sure what he's doing about it. I don't know if he warns him for that, but maybe he says, keep him up. You can see sort of muttering something. And it's just getting more and more desperate for Whittaker at this point in the fight. There were actually more examples of this earlier, and throughout the fight in general, this was something he did resort to. But for somebody who's been so braggadocious, so cocky, humiliating journeyman, guys who are very clearly, put in there to lose, making them look foolish, showing them up, it's really not a good look for Ben Whittaker that he has then gone into this fight, not had it his own way, started fouling instantly within 5 rounds. He started, committing multiple fouls, and then has ended up flipping himself out of the ring. I think this speaks to a serious mental weakness. The guy is obviously not a mentally weak person, but the pro game is a different mental test from the amateurs. It hurts a lot more. The fatigue is another level because of how much longer the fights are. Everything is far more punishing. And if he doesn't quickly get used to that, used to the idea of that, make adjustments, I don't see how he's going to be successful in the pro game. I really don't. And in particular in this rematch, I think he fundamentally needs to change on so many levels. Technically, tactically, mentally, they all need to be different. Conditioning as well, it all needs to be different. I think it's a very positive move that he's got Andy Lee, and we're going to talk about that. But for me, the things I've just shown you, there's so much needs to change. There's more things I can talk about, but I don't want to make this video like 3 hours long. So before I move into a detailed breakdown of what Whittaker needs to add, I think it's firstly a good idea to show you when I saw things that were working, because then you might understand a little bit where my head's at and why I think the Andy Lee link-up is good. Because early on, and it wasn't for very long because the fight didn't last very long, there was a couple of good things that Whittaker did that I think I'd like to see more of. And a lot of it is to do with pacing and stamina and range control. And if you can implement some of these things, that will be a bit easier. For some reason, he got away from what he was doing with these things. You'd have to ask him why. Maybe he just didn't respect Liam Cameron enough. Maybe he thought he could blow him out of there. Cameron hadn't been that active before this fight. He'd had a couple, but long time out the ring. People didn't realize he was that good anymore. I think mentally Whittaker expected to have it all his own way. So the first thing I want to show you is the jab and when it was working for Whittaker, what he was doing well. Now, this is the first thing that Whittaker got away from. He did use it throughout the fight, but not enough, in my opinion. So watch here. Liam Cameron in his typical position, coming forward with a high guard. Whittaker fires out a double jab. 1, 2. And you'll see neither of them land, but they both hit the guard. And it forces Liam Cameron to reset. Watch what he does. He jumps backwards. He goes backwards out of range. And look at the gap that opens up between the two of them. Absolutely massive. That is very, very important. And we see this a couple times. In fact, every time I think I saw Whittaker land a double jab, Cameron would lunge backwards. He'd take himself out of range. You see it again here. Liam Cameron steps in. That high guard is there. And what I like about this one is a little bit of variation. He exploits the opportunity, which is the body. So steps in, jab upstairs, jab down, second jab downstairs. So a nice double jab, one up, one down. And again, look at the space that opens up between them again. And it's all just from firing 2 jabs. Again here, start of round 2. Cameron steps in, high guard. Again, Whittaker, jab 1, steps in with jab 2. And again, this gap opens up between them. So that double jab is a really effective tool. He did do it multiple times in the fight. And it just forces Liam Cameron to reset. It forces him to reset, and I think it's a crucial tool for him. I think the big thing is making it less predictable, less readable, is probably what I would say. I think that he maybe throws it as an anxious thing, which is not helpful. And I think in general in this fight, he was far too stiff and far too anxious. I think it drained his battery far faster than a man of his fitness level should have got tired. But there's a couple of examples of it there. There's more examples you can see if you want to go and watch the full fight again. But that double jab was very, very nice when used. And actually, in general, I'll just say I won't bother showing you, but there was some nice variation in round 1 with that jab. Upstairs, downstairs, landed some clean shots with the jab. Potentially, the volume of shots he threw in round 1 was a bit much. Maybe he should have just been a bit more reserved, a bit less rushed. You know, scored a couple of jabs and then made himself secure, controlled the range better. Again, I keep talking about range control. It's probably the biggest factor in this fight for me. And again, I'll talk about how I think he can fix that when we get to that section. The final thing I want to show you that he did very sparingly, was measuring. And that is when you use your lead hand you extend it, you check the range, you bring it in again. You can't hold it there for too long. You can't excessively measure, as some fighters do and are allowed to do. But it's something Andre Ward did a lot in his career, which he got very right. I just want to show you a quick example of when he did it. And again, I don't know why he got away from doing this, but if you watch here, he's standing in front of him. Cameron's making those little steps in, those little steps in there. And you see that. You see what Whittaker does there? Cameron steps forward, Whittaker just takes a little half step back. Okay? And then he checks him. Holds that there. You see that? He's checking the range. Just measures, brings his hand in, another little, and then Cameron takes that step in again. Whittaker holds his feet, he jabs, high, dips his head down, steps out, and Cameron is forced to reset. I think the thing here, I like the measure, I like the jab, because he knows the range. The bit here that I don't necessarily agree with is the dip down. He's looking for the body jab there, which is why Cameron takes a little step back, but it's this constant loading of the legs, these athletic movements that he does. I think he just does it too much. I think he sits heavily in the pocket too much. This lean forward, I've talked about it. I think he can get away with it against opponents who aren't on his level, but against someone like Liam Cameron, who's going to take you long in the fight, who's going to punish you, make you tired, you just don't need to be doing such aggressive movements there. For me, all he's got to do after he lands this shot is take a little half step back, you know? That's all he's got to do. Or feint the leg dip. You know, you don't have to actually commit to it so much. So this is an interesting one. And I haven't mentioned this, something I thought Cameron did really well early on. He sort of rope-a-doped him in small moments. He would let Whittaker come onto him. He would back up, get on the ropes, let Whittaker fire off a few shots, and then they'd reset. And I think that he made Whittaker think it was going to be an easier night's work, encouraged him to throw punches, encouraged him to fatigue. You'll see here, watch, he puts his hands up and he goes backwards. Whittaker lands a jab, right hand out, both on the gloves though, and Cameron knows what he's doing. And then he throws a right hand downstairs. That's low. But what Whittaker's doing better here is you see he's actually getting his head off the line a little bit. So he throws a little low blow, gets his head off the line, comes up, gets his shoulder in position there. That's actually good. He's got his head here. It's a good position for him. He can rip that right hand in. It's all about trying to free some space there with one of those arms. But what he does here is, look, he measures again. Look, he holds it there. And again, this is not strictly legal. He holds it a bit too long, but you get away with what you can. He's measuring. He's covering Cameron's vision so he can't see what's happening. And from there, he's able to whip in a right hand to the body. And that's good stuff. And then he's able to just get away and they reset. But the point here is he didn't do it enough. That measuring, I think, is something he really needs to add into his game more, just like that double jab. So now we're going to talk about, and I've mentioned some of them already, but all the things that Whittaker needs to add. And these are going to tell you why I think Andy Lee is such a good addition, because I think Andy Lee understands all of these things. I mentioned a few of them there. So the measuring, I think, will be very, very helpful. I think the first thing I want to talk about here is lateral movement, because in this fight, Whittaker did use a decent amount of lateral movement, but it was, again, it's the way he does it. He's very, very bouncy and very athletic in the way that he does it. I'm looking for him just to do smaller movements, smaller foot movements, more controlled, more balanced. He also moves in a clockwise direction, an extremely large amount, to the point where I'd say it's quite predictable. So I think he needs to mix it up a bit, his lateral movement. But when we think about Andy Lee and we think about Joseph Parker and we think about Paddy Donovan, both of them use excellent lateral movement. But Paddy Donovan in that fight against Crocker, and again, I think this is a very excellent example of what I'm talking about in terms of the way I think Whittaker can adjust. And again, Donovan, an Andy Lee fighter, measures a lot. And I think there was excessive measuring in the Crocker fight. But again, uses that measuring, checks where the man is, moves off at an angle, moves around, makes sure that he's constantly making small adjustments with his feet, checking where his man is, controlling the range, controlling the distance. I don't think that it's fair to compare Crocker to Liam Cameron in the sense of Liam Cameron, I think, is better than Crocker at the moment. He's got more experience. He knows how to perform at a higher level. But it is a similar approach to things. You know, that high guard, that marching forward, trying to find yourself in the pocket. I believe that there are opportunities to control Liam Cameron more with its smaller adjustments, because he is the one who's constantly having to, you know, march forward into range. He's not got the fastest hands, Liam Cameron. They're not as fast as Ben Whittaker's, I don't believe. Whittaker should have the quicker foot speed. So making those adjustments, as long as he's more regular with them, should be better. And I just think he needs to be a bit less explosive with how he does things. More subtlety is basically generally what I'm talking about. So those small foot movements, absolutely essential. I showed you a few times there when he's frozen in the pocket. Those little foot movements, those little foot adjustments would make a massive difference. It's something we see guys like Crawford doing very well when they're in that counter-punching mode. Those little half steps backwards. You're always trying to make your opposition fall short. And by making them fall short and by making them throw from further out, you have more control over what happens. You have more control over making them miss, making them pay, getting your body position right, making sure their feet aren't too close. The first thing he's got to address for me, the biggest thing, he's got to address how easily Liam Cameron got into the pocket. The next thing I think I want to see him do better is feint a lot more. I want to see a lot more feints from Ben Whittaker. The main reason for this is the ease at which Liam Cameron was landing that right hand over the jab. I think if Whittaker was feinting more, you could potentially draw that shot. You could draw that lead right hand from Cameron. And because once you feinted, you're in position, you make him miss, you can then make him pay. So it's trying to anticipate what he wants to do, what he wants to counter. And that's why we call it violent chess. You're trying to draw their move, basically. So now he knows that's a go-to move. I think feinting will be very, very important in this fight. It's also important because, as I said, I felt that his jab was too one-paced. You want to feint. I want him to double up more. I want him to go up and down more. I think the body jab was on plenty of times and he didn't use it. A lot of the time it was because he was looking to do that dip in the pocket, dip the head down, dip to the side, load the legs. I don't want to see him doing that so much. I mean, yeah, there'll be moments when you can do that, but as a general rule of thumb, I see this guy as a longer, rangier fighter with a great jab, great feet, and I think he needs to when you make those small foot adjustments, things open up for you a lot more. So jab variation, feints, really, really important. Making Liam Cameron think more as he's walking in. You know, you don't want to eat those jabs at the end of the day. They are spiteful. Liam Cameron said in a recent interview that the shots didn't hurt, but they certainly did. You know, those shots, I don't think he's a hellacious puncher by any means, but I definitely think he punches hard enough. And a lot of what he needs to do is draw Liam Cameron. He needs to be more patient. Liam Cameron was a great role model for Ben Whittaker in this fight. He showed such great patience as he marched his way forward, waited for the mistakes, waited till his feet were in the right position, forced him to work really hard. Whittaker needs to fight this at a lower pace, one that he can sustain for longer, basically. We talked about him getting his head off the line when throwing. And that's something that he really needs to do more. He needs to, when he throws that jab, get his head off to the right-hand side. When he throws that right hand, get his head off to the left-hand side. When he throws that body jab, you see Usyk doing it beautifully. He always gets his head off the line. It's so important. And there was multiple times in this fight when Liam Cameron was able to time him with the jab himself. And as I said, it's because his shoulders are so square. So standing more side on, getting yourself off the line more, I think those are two very, very crucial factors for Whittaker. Overall, I feel like Whittaker is a tall, athletic guy, very long, who is trying to fight like a much shorter man. It's almost Mike Tyson-esque the way he dips in the pocket so much, stands so square. He doesn't have, to my mind, the clear punching power for that to be the right way to box for him. And it worked against those guys who were at a lower level. But when you fight somebody who is tougher and stronger than you, you can't be boxing like that. He doesn't make the most of his natural attributes. Now, I'm going to tell you who he really reminds me of here. And I'm going to take you back to that moment when he was, I was showing you that right hand over the top that Liam Cameron threw. So it's this moment here you'll watch. So he extends his jab hand. It goes, it hits Cameron's shoulder, and he sort of brings his jab hand back here. And it means that because it's there, he can get that right hand over the top. Now, there is a fighter that this reminds me of, and it might surprise you. It's Daniel Dubois. There are some things that he does that really remind me of Daniel Dubois. Now, look, this stance here, this is so Dubois-esque, where, you know, your feet, you've got one foot in front of the other, a decent position there. Look how square the shoulders are. That is exactly how Dubois boxes. Look at the hands. You know, Dubois has his guard exactly like that, with that gap up the middle. And something that Dubois does to defend, and because he has his square shoulders like that, it kind of works, is the wedge defense. And I think there's an opportunity for Whittaker to use it. And all he's got to do for it to work, when he throws this shot here, let me pause it there. The first thing he needs to do is keep this arm extended. Keep that extended. If he can, aim it slightly lower for the chest there. Hold it there. And when Cameron comes to throw this right hand over the top, it will catch him on the shoulder. And that's the other thing he's got to do. He's got to dip his chin in behind his shoulder more effectively. Because he likes to use that jab as a first line of defense, and because we know that Liam Cameron likes to lead with that right hand over the top of the jab, the first thing I said before was you can feint more, but the second thing you can do is this wedge defense. Keep it there. And what you'll see is that right hand not working. It's something that Dubois tried to do against Hrgovic. He didn't quite get it right. He didn't quite tuck his chin behind his shoulder enough, which was why he got hit. And then he adjusted it. He did it against AJ, and it went over the top. And those right hands for AJ did not land. They weren't effective. So I think for Whittaker, that wedge defense could be an absolute game changer. It really could. And it just was so, honestly, so odd for me watching it and thinking, God, this guy, those two things there, the stance he has, the square shoulders, really reminds me of Dubois. The benefit of those square shoulders is the power you can get on your jab. You know, that is something that you really do get because the shoulder is further back, you get more rotation on it when you throw it. Dubois he's a very naturally heavy-handed guy anyway, but that extra rotation on that jab makes it super powerful. You know, for the right hand, it also shortens up the distance the right hand has to travel, which means you can use it as more of a shorter shot. It's very good for countering bent arm shots. So, you know, the other thing that he could potentially do there is fire that right hand down the middle and use that. But I think that, you know, that requires a high lead hand, which he's often not got Whittaker. So there's a couple of different things he can do with that right hand from Liam Cameron. But the Dubois comparison surprised me and I found so strange. But really, those two elements anyway. The rest of it, not so much. But those two elements for sure really reminded me of Daniel Dubois. And, you know, the Dubois is at his best when he's bouncy and moving his feet a lot more. I think, you know, Whittaker for sure needs to move his feet more. It's a similar comparison in that sense. But the rest of it's not similar, but just those two elements. The way he stands looks so much like Dubois. And I think, again, as I say, that wedge defense, I think it could be a big game changer for him. Now, the other thing I think he can do more is throw around the guard a bit more. Because, you know, what do you do with that high guard? And I think this is something that, again, this is something Dubois, I would say I've not seen him do it, but again, I saw him it happened to him in that Hrgovic fight. I'm only on Dubois because it's just something I've seen recently, but there's two things you can do with that high guard because, you know, this is a position that he has to figure out. That Liam Cameron high guard caused him real issues. So watch here. This position here is a good one to show you. So that high guard there. The first area that opens up is the middle of the body. The second area that opens up is here. The third area, and the interesting area for me here, is around the side of the head. There's an opportunity here. What I'm saying is for bent arm shots, if you can occupy that guard for long enough. Behind that jab, you know, Whittaker just needs to find the right time to step in. And when he gets there, there will be options for him and opportunities for him. It's something we saw Beterbiev doing really well against Bivol at times in most of the first fight and sometimes the second fight, where he would double jab upstairs and then he'd sling in that right hand either to the body or to the head, sling it in, make him pay, and go around that high guard. And when you force them into the high guard like that, it's a really good way of landing clean shots. And as you can see, it is there with Liam Cameron. Because he knew Whittaker would be very straight up and down with those punches, a lot of jabs, he was able to use that. But I think those bent arm shots could work really well. The other thing he could do is a bit of guard manipulation, as I mentioned a second ago. And you saw it in a good example of it was when Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clark fought. And you saw there was that great clip of him pulling that lead hand down and then firing the right hand over the top and hitting clean on the chin. I think that Whittaker, the amount that Liam Cameron is in that high guard, I think Whittaker can try a bit more guard manipulation, pull that guard down, try and do some stuff with it, try and land those shots around it. Final two things I'll say, and there's so much here. I mean, you really get a sense of the scale of the job for Ben Whittaker. And look, maybe he can win it without changing all these things, but if I was looking to build the perfect performance, these are all the things I would consider for him. There was also a few moments in the fight where I felt he bit on Cameron's feints far too much, really reacted. And again, that tires you out and it makes you nervy and scared. And I think that he needs to not bite on them so much. But I think that comes with controlling the range more and not setting your feet as much. If your feet are already in motion, if you're already making those small adjustments, you don't need to bite on the feint so much. It really does come from having those really planted feet. You're like, oh, damn, I've got to get out of range now, but I've set my feet. So that's what creates that explosive movement. Again, it's reducing those explosive movements, I think, will help to manage his stamina so much. The final thing I'll say is this: he's got to manage the pace of the fight better. Really, really needs to pace himself better. A lot of this will help his pacing. A lot of the things I mentioned will really help his pacing. But the final thing, the final comment, pacing is something in boxing that often we don't think about too much as fans, because you sort of see them as these two men on screen. You forget that they've got health bars essentially and gas tanks, just like in a video game. And we've seen it recently. In this fight, I thought Liam Cameron paced himself beautifully through the first few rounds, made Whittaker throw quite a bit more than he was, and then he started to turn the screw when he realized how much this guy was holding his feet, how easy it was for him to enter the pocket, finding that his means and ways of landing his shots were working, getting around Whittaker's guard, very easy for him in the end, beating his defense, getting him in that pocket. The other fight, again, Beterbiev-Bivol 2, is the one I really think of, where Beterbiev didn't really manage the pace that well this time. I thought Bivol's pacing was very, very good. And I thought Beterbiev started too fast this time. And again, it's something that we just forget. Pacing in boxing, it's a massive, massive factor. And he's got to manage the pacing better. He really, really does. I want to finish this video by talking about what I think Cameron will do in this rematch, what I think he'll do. And let's talk about him, because he did so many things well and so many things right in this fight. He was really, really solid. So the first thing to say is more of the same. It's obvious to say, but more of the same things. I think that the way he jabbed to get himself into range, the way that he was constantly applying front foot pressure, putting his foot into the pocket, seeing what happened, nothing. Okay, I'll go again. I'll throw a shot. Throwing in combinations. I think that, I think that was absolutely key. When he was in the pocket, he'd throw one, he'd miss the first one, he'd maybe miss the second one, but then he'd land a third one. Wait for Whittaker to dip his legs, stay in the pocket, and then unload. That was really smart from Cameron, and it worked really, really well. I think the other thing he can do, though, better in this rematch, and I'm going to show you quickly a couple examples of it, is punish foot faults. Because Whittaker, the way that he moves is quite unorthodox, and as I said this before, a foot fault is only a fault if it's turned into one by your opponent. There's lots of fighters that get away with a lot of things that make them unbalanced, or maybe they put themselves into positions where they can't throw, but it's not a fault until someone makes it one. So for Liam Cameron, it's going to be about finding those moments when it happens. So for example, I'll show you here. So you can see in the quadrant of the ring you're in is quite important. If you look here, they're in this corner. So that's roughly the center of the ring there. And you can see they're in this position here. So for Whittaker, if he's not going to move his feet enough, he's going to end up, dipping down. And that's what he did a lot. But if, you're him, if you're wanting to be a back foot fighter, which I think he needs to accept his role as, you look for the exit here. So you can either go that way or you can go that way. And if you're Liam Cameron on the front foot, you're looking to cut off one of those exits. So anyway, watch here. Liam Cameron steps right in, goes with a jab, and Whittaker, because again, look, he does this thing where he doesn't move both feet. He just puts his back foot back. He dips down. Look how wide his stance is here. The problem with a wide stance is you get knocked off balance so easily. So big wide stance. Cameron just touches him there with a little jab, and he really could have stepped in there a bit more, I feel. But look, so for Whittaker to get out of this position, because his stance has widened so much, he's got to bring his back foot forward, and he temporarily ends up in southpaw, which he doesn't want to be in. So he steps there. Now watch what happens. He crosses his feet. Feet cross there, and then across there again. And then look at the big step he's had to take. And again there, constant crossing of the feet. At any moment there, This is in round 3, and, maybe later in the fight he does it. At any moment there, I feel if Liam Cameron commits with a shot, Whittaker's in trouble because his stance is so wide, he's crossing. I think there's moments like that in the fight that Liam Cameron can really capitalize on. Again here, and I think Liam Cameron's fairly has his mind fairly set on just getting out of range here. But again, if he watches, he takes a little step in. Again, he really widens his stance, goes with that big backhand there, from a ridiculously wide position. But because he is where he is, he steps through here and watch his feet end up crossing into southpaw again. And look at that position. Look how close his feet are. If he's actually looking at Whittaker there, you can see. But if he looked down and he saw this, he might be inclined to step in. And then look what happens. He sort of takes a little ginger step forward, steps in with his right foot, in with his left foot. By this time, Cameron's already gone out of range. But again, Whittaker makes these mistakes with his feet. And you can see here why it works. And I don't think he's deliberately capitalized on this moment. But again, you see what happens to Whittaker when he gets hit, when he's switching or crossing. So watch, Liam Cameron steps in, he throws a left hook, hits the guard, but then watch what Whittaker does. Because he loads his feet up so much. This foot goes back. So there, boom. He ends up in southpaw for a moment. He's trying to pivot at the same time, but then he crosses. He brings his right foot back and he gets hit as he's doing it. The point there is he ends up over there, but you can see when he's in that position of, just to illustrate it for you, when he's in that position of crossing his feet, he can't do anything but try and get away. He can't throw punches because his feet aren't planted and in position to do so. And the other thing I'll say is I'll show you from this screen here. What he always does is he circles clockwise. He does go counter sometimes, but generally he circles clockwise. So I think in a rematch for Liam Cameron, I think that right hand, again, is really essential, but I think he can use it again in different ways to stop the exit, is what I'm trying to say. So that Whittaker's going to probably I think he'll try and do what I've said, try and make more small foot adjustments, try and exit more, look to not dip in the pocket so much, to jab and move around. He's going to have to work on cutting off the ring, and I think that will be absolutely crucial in the rematch. I also think Cameron can feint more in this. I think that he can make Whittaker even more nervous. I think he will be nervous in this rematch. So I think feints will be really important and really essential to just make him tense up. He doesn't want to get hit. And if he is going to be on the back foot more, those feints will, they will cause him some stress, I believe. I liked what Cameron did with the ropes, but I think just be mindful of the fact that he probably will look for more bent arm shots. So just don't commit to that strategy too much. Make sure that you're prepared for those shots coming. But in general, yeah, it was a good strategy. Let him work when you're on the ropes. That does tire him out for sure. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed what I've talked about here. To be clear, I'm not making a prediction today. I will do it closer to the fight. I hope the fight goes ahead with some of the news we've been getting lately. But I think what I really want to say at the end of this breakdown is this. This is a close fight. I think this rematch is going to be really, really close because Cameron is better than people thought he is. He's a very, very decent, very solid fighter with a lot of good attributes. And I think that Whittaker has to improve so much in what is a relatively short amount of time. I think Andy Lee is an excellent pick as a coach for him. I think he's exactly the right guy based on what I've seen from some of his fighters to go and implement the right style. But I think there is a hell of a lot of work to be done. I think it's going to be extremely tough getting him ready for this fight. Part of the dispute over these rounds they've been having, I do wonder if there's an element of Andy Lee looking at him and going, and I said this in my video, Andy Lee looking at him and going, this guy isn't going to be ready in time. He isn't ready to implement the strategy we need him to do. Very, very interesting, very curious. If it is over 12 rounds, that definitely gives Liam Cameron even more of a chance. But the big general comment I would say is for both men, Cameron did it great in the first fight. Whittaker's got to improve it massively, is patience. Much more patience. I think naturally he'll be more patient anyway because of the increased apprehension he'll have after what happened in the first fight. But wow, so much to say about this one. I've said so much in this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think in the comments section below. Please, if you've enjoyed the work I've put into this, bang a like on the video. Subscribe to a guy called Henry if you're new. I really want to know who you think is going to win this fight. I will make my prediction closer to the fight. Let me know if you think there's anything I've missed. I think there's probably a couple more things I could have talked about, but I'm trying to keep this video within a reasonable length, which I think I've failed to do. But anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to it. The game film analysis videos are back. They are the bread and butter of this channel and the things I enjoy doing the most. But I hope you've all enjoyed it. And as I always say, on to the next one.